Hello, this is Rosie Rosenberger. I want to introduce my new Vistage program called the Process Leaders Punch List. This program grew out of my 10 years of presenting the process triaging program and the sidebar conversations and shiny object conversations that came up during those talks. It also comes from 25 years of working with high performing teams that basically run terrific business processes. I essentially cover 10 perspectives about looking at business processes. And I'll give you the quick list of them. We'll probably spend anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes on each one, and no doubt some of them will be robust, very interesting conversations. So I'll talk about why your business process, say lead to cash or bid to cash or order to ship, those core drive shaft processes. Talk about why there needs to be an illustration of them up in a team room. We'll talk about capability goals. In other words, we talk about strategic goals, for example, EBITDA or earnings or whatever. But why do process goals have to be very physical in their language? For example, so many leads converted at a specific rate, winning X percent, let's suppose, and at what margin, how often, very physical language. It's a very interesting conversation about how do you actually operationalize your growth goals. We'll talk about as you grow and you add staff to deal with the volume as you grow, how silos and swim lanes, et cetera, how they're natural and necessary. And what's especially important as you grow is deciding where to set work, subcomponent work handoff boundaries and design those. Talk about bottlenecks and how you let bottlenecks lead you through a continuous process improvement culture. Because typically once you fix one bottleneck, it's predictive where the next one's going to be, for example. We'll talk about what's the relationship between your customers, right, and your process. That concept is probably 25, 30 years old. It's called moments of truth, and it's a very interesting concept. For example, there's typically only about 5 or 6 of these in most core processes, lead to cash processes, and you got to get them right. And it's these places where you really get to drive your culture into your customer experience. I'll talk about really understanding cash in a process and however well you understand the process, you don't completely understand it till you see it as a flow of pennies. Interesting. Talk about when you're issue processing on a process, how you always need to look at process before people. We'll talk about trade-offs, how anytime you touch a process to fix it or to strengthen it, it'll always cause something else to suffer, and how you just got to be deliberate about how you touch and improve processes. And finally, we're talking about this amazing, perhaps counterintuitive idea that if you're growing, you're breaking your process. Which, we think that once it gets working right, great. It should be able to scale. And in fact, very rarely when you get it working right, and of course, in that working right, it generates more activity, that new activity actually breaks the process. And what that means in terms of our disposition of how, for example, how married we are to how we do things. It's an interesting conversation. Anyway, it's a 10-point punch list. Very lively conversation. I'll bring some case studies and some artifacts, and I look forward to to sharing that with you and your team if it makes sense for you. Thank you.